Hi, welcome to Daily Dose of Anime Recaps. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the first 4 episodes of the series, Ashito. An average boy from a small city in Japan aspires to become like his idol, Lionel Messi. Can he make it? Or will he simply be one of the millions who tried and failed? Before we begin, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next episodes. The episode starts with a junior high school soccer tournament in Ehime, Japan. A player named Ashito has been playing very well and his opponent team considers him a threat. When Ashito scores a hat trick, he and his teammates feel that they have a chance of winning the match and qualifying for the semifinals. However, when the opposing team's goalkeeper senses their probability of loss, he goes ahead and tries to mess with Ashito. It turns out the goalkeeper was classmates with Ashito in grade school and was also a member of their soccer team. He taunts Ashito that his teammates are just a bunch of morons who are trying to trail on his tailcoats. Suddenly, Ashito headbutts him, leading him to be sent off and his team losing the match. Meanwhile, a mysterious man in the audience observes Ashito from the stand. Later, Ashito's mother lashes out at him for losing his temper. Also, Ashito's coach informs him that he has now lost an opportunity to play in the junior high league. Meanwhile, the mysterious man from the stadium has been standing at a seashore and watching Ashito run around for the last 2 hours. While the man asks him to stop and talks to him, Ashito passes out due to exhaustion. When Ashito wakes up, he sees the man trying out a unique soccer move. Ashito is awestruck and asks him to teach him that move. However, even after several attempts, Ashito is unable to do the move. Hence, the man thinks that it was just a delusion on his end and that Ashito is not a good player. He then starts talking about tactics to Ashito, who initially ignores the man but later explains to him with the help of his teammates he was able to score. Ashito is not a good player. Ashito explains that he's short-tempered and can only play when he's free to play on his own way. Because of his behavior, he was always rejected until he met his friends from a junior high school who accepted him for who he is. Then, he describes his game by drawing a diagram in the sand. The man is shocked as Ashito is able to remember the positions of all 22 players on the field. In the next scene, the goalkeeper who messed with Ashito arrives at Ashito's house and apologizes to his mother. He confesses that Ashito headbutted him because he mocked him for being poor and insulted his mother. Back in the seashore, the man is left dumbfounded and goes on a nearby bench to cool down a little. However, he falls asleep. When he wakes up, he finds Ashito still practicing the trick. Surprisingly, he succeeds and learns the trick, but gets exhausted after practicing the whole night. Later, the man reveals himself as Fukuda Tatsuya, the manager of a leading youth soccer club in Tokyo, named Aspirian FC. He explains that every junior league team has a youth team made up of high school-aged players. So Tatsuya asks Ashito to come and try the qualifiers of his team in Tokyo. When Ashito talks about the selections with his mother, she refuses to send him to Tokyo, given their poor financial condition. Although Ashito is upset, he continues to live his daily life as usual and play with his friends. The next day, Ashito's elder brother, Shun, tells him that Tatsuya is an internationally acclaimed player who had to retire due to an injury. Surprisingly, Shun gives his savings to his younger brother and asks him to try for the qualifiers and live his dream. He also assures him that he will convince their mother. Following that, Ashito goes to Tokyo City Aspirian FC and gets fascinated by the huge facility. He runs into Tatsuya's sister, Hana, who tells him that there are lots of good players from junior and senior high participating in the test outs. When she sees Ashito getting excited with a grass field, she doubts her brother's decision to call him. Later, Tatsuya and the coaches summon the 86 players present in the tryouts and familiarize them with certain rules and regulations. When Tatsuya mentions that there's a possibility that none of the participants are selected, Ashito gets furious and claims that it's not fair. However, Tatsuya explains that youth teams aren't soccer schools and they only select those players who are game ready and qualified. Soon, the 20-minute games begin for the selection. Ashito's team plays against a strong team, and his bad habit of taking the ball for himself to score makes his teammates not want to pass it to him. One of his teammates, Isaku, yells at him for trying to play all by himself and mentions that they have to play as a team. Meanwhile, some of the people watching the match talk about a player named Tachibana, who is Ashito's opponent and a brilliant player. On the other hand, Hana, who is also watching the match, asks Tatsuya if it's okay to have such a huge skill gap between the teams. Tatsuya responds that they aren't judging the boys' physicality or skills, but their intelligence. Ashito stands in the field and the coaches discuss among themselves that he's of no use and wonder why Tatsuya called him. Turns out Ashito is observing the field and the players' positions to create a tactic. Since he's now playing with skilled players, he realizes realizes he should play with tactics and not on his own. As soon as he moves to play, Tatsuya gets excited. Ashito manages to get the ball but doesn't pass it when two opponents block him. 5 minutes to the end of the match, Ashito is still holding the ball, making everyone think why he is doing so. When Hana looks at Tatsuya, he finds him smiling as he knows something surprising will happen. After two other opposing players approach Ashito, he dribbles towards his own goal. In the meantime, his player, Kaneda, runs towards the opponent's goalpost. When Ashito kicks a long shot and passes the ball to Kaneda, the latter heads the ball and scores. The match is over and Ashito is very pleased with himself. When Kaneda gives him a thumbs up, Ashito smiles. Meanwhile, Tatsuya and the coaches can't believe what they just saw. One of the coaches says to Tatsuya that he saw a glimpse of Ashito's bird's eye view that covers the whole field. Then, Tatsuya announces that they will soon decide the name of 11 players who will be selected for the final stage of assessment, and Ashito gets anxious. At the cafeteria, Ashito learns that Hana, who is volunteering at the cafeteria, is in fact Tatsuya's sister. Finally, out of the 86 boys, only 11 are selected to take part in the final stage of assessment. As expected, Ashito is also selected along with Aisaku, Tachibana, Kaneda, and others. In the next scene, an excited Ashito calls his brother Shun and shares the good news. Later, he tries to talk with the other selected players, but most of them are not interested. However, Tachibana, Kaneda, Aisaku, and two others join him to talk about how badly they want to be selected. While the others get depressed, thinking their life's over if they don't get selected, Ashito encourages them, saying that they are skilled players and he's pleased to get to play with them. Meanwhile, Tatsuya introduces the boys with their final stage opponent team, the Aspirian Youth. Seeing them, the boys immediately become scared and call it unfair, as the Aspirian Youth is a group of highly skilled players. However, Ashito isn't scared at all. In fact, he looks thrilled and motivates his team members that they can do it. Tachibana also agrees with Ashito and tells everyone that most of the Aspirian Youth players are first year in high school, which makes him only 1 year above the boys. Later, a player named Akutsu from Aspirian Youth talks to Tatsuya. When he hears a confident Ashito encouraging his teammates, Akutsu thinks the boys have a misunderstanding about the Aspirian team. Then he goes to talk to Ashito and asks about his ruined cleats. Although they are a little worn out, Ashito tells him they're comfortable enough for him. Following this, the two of them introduce each other and shake hands. Ashito thinks of Akatsu as an elite player. Soon, the match starts. Ashito's team performs well and nearly scores a few times. As they play, Ashito and Tachibana realize that Aspirians are going easy on them, and something isn't right. After a while, the Aspirian Youth team launches into a devastating display of one-touch passing style. Tatsuya explains it to Hana that if the one-touch passing style is rightly done, the team can bear down on the opponent's goal at formidable speed. However, it only works if the players have exceptional positioning, passing, and the ability to calculate where the space will be. All the 11 players of the team must share a perfect mental map of the ball and the field. After the first half, Akutsu shows his true colors and badmouths Ashito, asking him to return back home. During halftime, Hana tells Ashito that Akutsu is an outlaw and the only one who got selected in last year's candidate trials. Shortly after, the second half starts and the youth team plays with a different strategy. During the match, Akutsu deliberately collides with Ashito, hurting him. Meanwhile, Tatsuya reveals that the reason for the Aspirian youth team's slow start was because he asked everyone but the goalkeeper on their team to play out of position. This leaves the candidates surprised. Just then, an announcement is made that the candidates have only 10 minutes left to show their true potential. One of the candidates panics and falls on his knees, saying even though the Aspirian team played in unfamiliar positions, they have beaten them. He fears that he will never be able to be like them within a year. Once the match restarts, Ashito tries to stand, but he is in pain after the injury. However, he remembers when his mother got him an expensive pair of cleats despite having financial problems. He then gets up on his feet and tries to play, but looks terribly exhausted. Just then, he sees Tatsuya staring at him in disappointment. When Ashito realizes that if he returns home by quitting, it will upset his mother and brother, who despite facing lots of hardships, never stopped him from living his dreams. Suddenly, Ashito becomes motivated and gets back his form. He blocks Akutsu and heads a ball, which infuriates Akutsu. Back in Ahime, Ashito's mother worries about Ashito. Meanwhile, Shun tells her that the average annual income for a junior-level player is almost the same as a regular office worker. She gets conscious and says she's curious. Besides, she isn't sure if Ashito will be selected. In the field, Ashito begins to perform well and praises himself. He also promises himself to think about anything else than in this match. He believes he has more reason to play the game when the other team is too strong. Soon, people start praising Ashito's strength and confidence. When Hana claps as an appreciation for Ashito, the spectators also join her. During the last 3 minutes of the match, Ashito puts his full effort and asks Tachibana to stick by him. The latter also gets motivated and starts pushing for goals. While other candidates are fully exhausted by now, Ashito and Tachibana are giving their best. Just then, one of the Esperion team's players touches the ball with his hand, gifting Ashito's team a free kick. Surprisingly, Aisaku steps up and says that he wants to take it. Before Aisaku kicks, Ashito remembers Hana telling him that a player should never stop thinking about soccer. With the limited time they have, Ashito thinks about what they can possibly do to win. After a while, Aisaku kicks the ball. Akutsu stops it with a header and passes the ball to his teammate. However, Ashito tracks back and controls the ball. The match is almost about to end, but Ashito is determined to score a goal one way or another. Using his bird's-eye field analysis, Ashito changes his direction and goes wide, surprising everyone. He then makes a long pass to Tachibana, who further passes it to Aisaku. When Aisaku kicks the ball to score, Akutsu blocks it and the ball flies in the air. Surprisingly, Ashito pops out of nowhere, strikes the ball, and scores. Ashito can't believe that he actually scored. As he thinks about the happy faces of his family, Aisaku and Tachibana hug him with joy. The three of them then enjoy their victory and Tatsuya smiles, feeling proud of Ashito. Later that evening, the final interview for the selection takes place. When asked about the Esperion youth team, Ashito says they are strong. Then he asks Tatsuya why he misplaced the youth team's positions, to which the latter replies that it's part of their training, and he told them a week earlier to trounce the candidates despite playing out of position. Following that, as part of the interview, Tatsuya asks Ashito what he was thinking during the goal. The boy answers that he was thinking and analyzing the other players' moves as well as about his mother and brother. Furthermore, he explains that he only played soccer the way he liked until today and took it for granted. But now he has learned that teamwork and tactics matter. He aspires to become a pro and earn enough money so that he can pay his mother back for all the hardships she has faced. Even if he doesn't get selected, Ashito claims that he'll certainly become a pro player and thanks Tatsuya for bringing him there. After a few days, Ashito is back in Ehime and tells his brother that he did everything he could and has mentally prepared himself in case he fails. Afterwards, when Ashito is dancing with his friends, he finds a letter in his pocket and remembers Hana telling him to read it only after reaching Ehime. Turns out it's a diet plan for Ashito. The episode ends when Ashito's mother brings him his letter of selection, which makes him, Shun, and all his friends excited.